Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants. Welcome back to the podcast, brethren. This is Rick Moore, past master and current secretary at Fort Worth 148.
This is Billy Hamilton, junior warden for 148.
And this is Gabe Yagish, senior deacon of Fort Worth 148.
Well, I'm glad I was able to make the intro on this one. I missed out on the last one with Jack Harper.
Yeah, well, we caught you in at the end, but...
Yeah, that's, man, so much has happened since then. Oh, my gosh, because that was the night I met the guys from Nebraska that drove down for Texas MasoniCon, and I couldn't pull away from them. We were having such a good time. Bill and Mark that had come down, and they drove down early, but I made it back just in time for all the fun with Jack.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. Since recording that, it's been a couple weeks, and so Billy and I went to the South Central Department York Conference, and we saw Jack there again, and this past weekend was the Scottish Rite the second weekend of the Fort Worth Scottish Rite reunion. So it's been
all three of us
busy.
What else did you guys work in though? That was wicked cool. I know Billy went that morning.
Yeah,
but it seemed like you went somewhere that night.
So Billy and I were honored to be guests at the Lone Star Grand Commandery Knights Templar of Texas, Prince Hall affiliated, and I probably didn't get that wrong because there's a lot of words in that title. But we went to the Grand Commandery of Prince Hall, Texas, for their mid-year convocation or mid-year conclave. They call it Mid-Templar, and it was this big banquet, and it was just phenomenal. They had a speaker there, and he's a reverend. So I mean, it was less of a talk and more of a straight up sermon. It was fantastic.
It was spine tinglingly good.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
At one point, they had a soloist come up and sing, and he started singing, and it was a song that everybody knew. So then, when he was carrying the lead, everybody in the room, and we're talking a few hundred people here, everybody in the room would just fill in on the supporting vocals, and it was nuts. I mean, I was talking with Billy about it afterwards, and I was saying, man, it felt like my brain was on fire and my spine was hooked up to an electric fence. It was crazy, It was very awesome.
And you missed our reception that morning where we were formally received by the Grand Commander and the Grand Master of Prince Hall Masons in Texas. And as we came in, they had us come in under the Arch of Steel, and that gentleman, who's also a Sir Knight, was singing that song as we were walking in. And it was hard to keep in step with the awesomeness of being kind of lost in the moment.
It was really incredible.
So let me ask you guys this. How many times has this happened that the two Knights Templars, like you visited their Prince Hall session like this?
Never.
So this is like first history. One. That's what I'm talking about. That's why I really wanted to highlight it, because what a moving moment to be a part of. And what's so cool to me is y'all talk about the culture that they have in their masonry, because we're all getting to the same place. But I bet dollars to donuts there's not a lot of singing at the Knights Templar gathering on our side.
No, sir.
And that may be a good thing.
For anyone,
and I'm with you.
Oh, and I looked it up, and the song is "I Open My Mouth to the Lord," and that's I open my mouth to the Lord.
That's cool. I love the little nuances of the differences that that we have right here in our own backyard, because that was right down the road from us, right there in Fort Worth.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's where all their grand bodies meet, is the Prince Hall Grand Lodge in Texas here in Fort Worth.
Man, that's a beautiful thing.
And I had the, Billy and I had the opportunity to speak with Ronald Jurack, their right eminent Grand Commander, who is retiring this year, actually. But when I say retiring this year, I mean that traditionally Prince Hall Grand Body presiding officers traditionally serve for extended periods of time. So he's been serving since, I'm probably wrong, 2011.
That's like their Grand Master, right? They serve until they're either somebody's elected against them, or they step down.
Yes. But we were talking with Sir Knight Jurack, and I expressed, how thankful I was, because I feel so humbled to be part of this process where once the Grand Commandery Knights Templar of Texas reciprocated mutual recognition, Billy and I were part of a group of Sir Knights that went to St. Cecil's Commandery here in Fort Worth. And it was the first time that in the history of the state of Texas that Sir Knights from the State Grand Commandery and Sir Knights from the Prince Hall Grand Commandery have sat together in an open conclave. And we did it right after Grand Commandery in April. And now we went to Mid-Templar, and we were received as guests. And that's just it blows my mind. And, I'm so humbled and proud to be part of the great Texan leap forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no doubt. I mean, because we still got a lot of work to do, but we're breaking down walls, man. That's good stuff. Yeah. It's good stuff. It's only going to strengthen both of our organizations.
Well, and we were talking about there is a little bit of cross-pollination going on right now because, their grand lecturer, Julius Wright, had come to see one of our orders of the temple, and he saw things. He's like, we need to start doing that in ours. And I know for us, I would love to capture that feeling that we had last night, that energy.
Yes.
That's something that I think sometimes, we're all very passionate about it, but it was infectious, to be there last night. And I would like to see and experience something like that, in our Grand Commandery, even our Blue Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's something that they do sometimes at their grand sessions, is they'll confer a degree for that particular body. And I would love to see something like at Grand Conclave, we confer the Order of the Temple or whatever, and we have a choir, right? Or we have obviously it would have to be all male because only Sir Knights can see the Order of the Temple. But it would be super cool because you're not forbidden from playing music during the Order of the Temple.
Right.
So just bring a choir.
Right. The old Grand Encampment ritual books actually have music that were suggested for different parts of the Order of the Temple.
Mm-hmm. And for the Order of Malta as well.
Right.
So, let's jump into discussion questions real quick, because there's one that kind of stuck out to me when I was reading Reddit. As everyone knows, I just kind of steal all these questions from Reddit, but this is Scared to Death for Third by MFC Mason on the Freemasonry subreddit. Brethren, I am a fellow craft mason and am preparing for my third degree in a couple of weeks. I have lurked here for a while, but have a question that is keeping me up some nights. My mentor and some brethren I work with are making me very hesitant and downright scared for my third degree. I understand there's a physical component and would never wish to be guilty of attempting to learn secrets I should not know yet, but do I need to be worried? Am I walking into an ass-kicking? Should I call out of work for a couple of days after? or are they just having fun? I seriously cannot tell anymore.
Wow.
And so right off the bat, I want to say, if that's happening in your lodge, you are screwing up. You are hurting somebody.
And here's the thing. There's a lot of unknowns about this story because I'm really conflicted with it. I mean, we might be dealing with an especially, what's the word I'm looking for? Very sensitive type of person.
Right.
Because these degrees should take you through a myriad of emotions. But if this is some kind of hazing thing, which that's what's kind of unclear, you know.
And I'm not saying that this lodge is necessarily doing physical stuff to their candidates. Yeah. But if you're joking around with a guy so hard that he doesn't know if you're actually going to hurt him or not, you're doing it wrong. You're hurt because that is hurting him.
100%. But if they said something like, this one's a little more intense and a little more physical than the last two, and that's all they said, and he gets all freaked out by it, well, he might be being a little too sensitive by it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
and there's a lot of unknowns. And it really does sound like they're because if he's getting the impression that there's a physical component, but he's walking out of it. He's walking out of that conversation with, do I need to be worried? Do I need to take time off work? Like, they've got to be joking around with him pretty inappropriately.
He makes it sound like he's going to get jumped.
Yeah. From the context of this, it does. But I just want to make the point that while it shouldn't be anything jovial, and you shouldn't be trying to reveal anything, but there should be some sort of preparation as well, that this is all guys before you've done it this way. It's nothing jovial. There's no hazing, but the master's degree is a step up from the rest. And I love telling guys that. I usually say no more and no less than this last degree is a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect, to where it's like, wait, what's fixing to happen? Because the first two degrees are pretty unique in themselves.
Yeah. Well, go for it, Billy.
Yeah, no, I kind of like, not necessarily letting on that something different is going to happen, because I remember when I went through my degrees, after going through the first two, I felt like, oh yeah, the Master Mason's degree, it's going to be the same as the first two. I got this.
Yeah.
And then I was in for a surprise, right? It like really hit me. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Something's different here.
And that's why, and this is not intended to offend any of the brethren that wear them, but this is why I hate the damn costumes. Because the damn costumes make it real obvious that it's a really different degree. It's a spoiler. And seeing that posted all over Facebook just kills me. But then, different lodges, different traditions, not intended to offend anybody. That's just how I feel.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, I think that if you're doing these degrees right, they should go through a lot of different emotions. They shouldn't be scared out of their pants 2 weeks before they're doing their masters. But maybe they should be a little scared leading up a couple of minutes before they knock on that door.
And I want to tack on to that. I do believe that they should feel apprehensive.
Yes.
Right? That they're not sure if they're going to go through with it or not, but I don't believe that they should be scared.
Yeah,
I feel like there should be
loosely.
Yeah, but there should be some sense of uncertainty and calculation that happens, but not fear.
No.
And there are
not like bodily harm.
And so, to be fair, though, there are clandestine lodges that do get up to all sorts of crazy stuff, right? Like, we've all heard stories about clandestine lodges that send people to the hospital, or that they end up paddling people or knocking people out or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that as regular Masons, right? We sometimes we get thrown into the mix of what clandestine Masons do, but I never want to. Anytime I hear stories about people going too far with candidates, even in regular lodges, I'm kind of horrified, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
not the stonecutters.
yeah. Well,
Well,
and so I've heard stories about like how one candidate went through a certain part of one degree and the lodge made it seem as if he was going to be immediately expelled from masonry, and how his dad said, "I can't believe the son of mine would do this, da 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 da," and like left the lodge after yelling at his son in open lodge during a degree. And it turns out the lodge does that to all their candidates. And to me, that's horrifying, because this guy thought that had messed up so hard that he was going to get kicked out of masonry. You can't be doing this to people.
That's intense.
Yeah.
And we're always going to be lumped in just because we're a fraternity. I mean, you say fraternity and you immediately think, oh my gosh, how many bologna sandwiches are they going to make me eat?
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Which sounds like an oddly specific example, Rit. But yeah, I don't know. That was just kind of what was sitting on my mind. I wanted to bring that up. So, guys, if you are ever feeling apprehensive about your degrees, don't, know that you're going to be fine. We do talk about, follow your leader and fear no danger. And that's for a real reason. We've all been through the degrees, and we've all sat there, and we've all taken those same obligations. But if somebody's misleading you as to the character of Masonic degrees, then they are only doing harm to themselves, yourself, and the fraternity as a whole. So
yeah, and change that culture in your lodge. That's not nonsense. If they're embarrassing their candidates, that's nonsense.
yeah.
It's not what we're here for.
So, yeah. So on a more lighthearted note, I wanted to get your take on this. Sell Me on Your Favorite Appendant Body by Flasky TG, which makes me think it might be Flasky Tungsten, but Flasky TG on the Freemasonry subreddit. I'm the ideal let's say I'm the ideal candidate for your appendant body. How do you get me to petition? Ideally, tell me why you love your appendant body so much.
You want my take? If you're asking me to sell you on my favorite appendant body, I would tell you need to spend more time in the Blue Lodge. It will come to you, when you learn more. That's the thing, is learn about these appendant bodies and what they offer differently, because while it's kind of similar in the lessons, the way they're presented are unique for each kind of personality, and you're going to find more value in one than the other. Not that you can't join them all, but you're going to gravitate to one more than the other, because they're pretty different when it comes to Scottish Rite Shrine and York Rite, the big three.
But Billy, how about it? How would you sell the ideal candidate who is just on the edge to your favorite appendant body?
Yeah, come on, Billy, sell it.
So I am in a host of different appendant bodies, right? So I am in Scottish Rite, York Rite, Shrine, Grotto, Eastern Star.
The Jesters. No, I'm kidding.
No. No, but so, all the ones you can sign up for, I guess, that you don't have to be invited to. And I have to say, honestly, my favorite will be York Rite and the Knight Templar, right? Because you don't have to go into the Knights Templar if you go in the York Rite. You can choose to stop at chapter and council. But I love the Knights Templar. I mean, and like what we did this weekend, that's the reason why I love it, is because it's such a close bond. You have so much in common. And it seems like everyone takes it serious, but at the same time, it's very fraternal. A lot of great friendships that I built up in there. And I would say most of my close friends that are Masons are also Knights Templar, right? And not that I'm excluding anybody. It just seems to be that we all kind of gravitate in the same direction.
That hurt, Billy. That hurt.
We'll get you there, Red.
We'll
worry
fix
about
you.
it.
We'll fix you.
We have a petition waiting for you already, Red.
Oh.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's a great body. I love the uniforms. Some people aren't crazy about them, but I personally love them. I love the work. I could say that out of all the rituals I've been through, there is none that is more beautiful than the Order of the Temple that I've seen so far. And that, again, the feel that the hair raise up when you experience something special that happened to me during the Order of the Temple.
Yeah. And then I actually commented on that thread, and this is the answer that I posted in there. You are going to experience, and obviously anybody that knows me will be able to guess. You are going to experience the most intense ritual you'll ever encounter in your Masonic career. When I went through it, my heart was pounding the entire time. It was so emotionally intense that when the ritual came to a climax, it felt like my brain was on fire and my spine was wired with electricity. After it's over, you'll be a part of a group of Masons that is highly involved at all levels and insanely dedicated to the craft. It is the most exhausting Masonic body you'll ever be in, and you'll love every second of it. And that's very obviously Templary. So,
Right.
I cannot recommend Templary more to any Christian Mason. They're like, if you're a Christian Mason and you want to exhaust yourself to death with having fun and being overwhelmed with amazing emotional experiences and getting to know the hardest workers in the craft, well, that's unfair. Don't anybody get offended by that. But, from what I've seen, really the hardest workers, like, get deep into Templary.
Yeah.
And because most of the guys that I know that are in Templary, they are also in Scottish Rite. They are also in Shrine. They are also in Grotto. They are also in and they're active everywhere, including in their Blue Lodge. And there's, to quote a unnamed past Grand Presiding Officer, because I don't know if he wants, it's a good quote, but I don't know if he wants his name tied to it. The great thing about York Rite Masonry is that you know that when the people show up there, it's because they give a damn. So, that's my pitch.
I think that's a real testament to finding your love in the appendant body, because you guys found it. I mean, all of that makes sense. It falls right in line with what you like. You find so much value in it, and you've run with it. And I could get two guys on here that's joined the Shrine that are the same age as y'all that can talk the same way about the Shrine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Shrine is awesome.
That's why I think we have really done a disservice to where everybody just jumps out and joins them all. And now you're getting pulled in all these different directions, and it's find the one you like, and you can join them all in the end, but prioritize it. Yeah. Because I was talking to Billy today, and he was like, here's how it's going to go for me. And, right under Blue Lodge was York Rite. And I think that's a great thing. Although he's a member of all those other bodies, here's his priority because he gets the most value out of it.
Yep.
Be honest. Don't be ashamed about it.
And I do have to say that when it comes to, like, most people are going to gravitate towards either Scottish Rite or York Rite. And it doesn't have to be exclusive. I find an immense amount of value out of being in both of them, because I find that when I watch the Scottish Rite degrees, there's elements of York Rite Masonry in there. And then when I watch, and help out with the York Rite degrees, I start thinking about, oh yeah, we were talking about this in, one of the degrees in Scottish Rite. So they reinforce each other, and it's different approaches. But I find to get the best knowledge, you kind of got to be in both of them.
Well, and also our craft lodges, the blue lodges, the first 3 degrees make more sense if you go with the York Rite degrees. They kind of tie into each other a lot more sequential than the Scottish Rite degrees do, because we don't do Scottish Rite craft degrees.
Sounds like we may be slowly converting you over to our way, Rit.
Slowly.
There's just so much to learn about them. That's what I encourage.
So the podcast subject for tonight I know we took a while getting to it, is Texas MasoniCon 2018. I want to call this either the 2018 recap, the 2018 postmortem, the 2018 autopsy. Either way, recap sounds more friendly.
Right.
Or,
yeah. The others imply it's dead. So,
or just podcast episode filler.
I know, right?
We were so exhausted that it was like, oh my gosh, we got to record a podcast in a few days. What are we going to do?
So I do want to acknowledge our brother treasurer, Mark McCarran, who was going to be on the podcast with us tonight.
Really the backbone of it.
So
yeah,
he is feeling ill. So we hope for his speedy recovery.
Yeah, because we're going to talk kind of speculative about it, where he's more of a specific numbers guy. Yeah. Just the idea, guys.
So yeah, so this is weird, obviously, because this podcast is just fluff. Anyway, so let's talk about preparation and moving parts first. What did we have to? Well, actually, rewind. If you did not go to Texas MasoniCon 2018 or have not heard of Texas MasoniCon 18, which if you listen to this podcast, I don't know how you wouldn't have heard of Texas MasoniCon 2018. It was a big event that we had where we invited a bunch of guest speakers for a whole Saturday, and we pumped people's brains full of information, and it was very educational. So, anyway.
Yes.
Let's talk background, moving parts. I know we don't have Mark with us, but let's kind of say, what did we have to put into this to make it happen?
Well, looking back on it, because we created the Facebook Messenger group, and I just scrolling through it the other day, sitting on the couch, and it's like, my gosh, we have put a lot of work into that event. I mean, because it literally started out as something we just talked about a lot at Lodge, as something that would be cool to do.
I don't even think we talked about it at Lodge that much. I think it was just kind of a post-Lodge sort of discussion,
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Just a discussion with the brothers where at family day or cigars or barbecue cook-off, wherever it would come up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that would be fun to do, which all stemmed from us bringing in speakers ourselves, which, to highlight, we didn't pay any of these guys. They all spoke for free. Now, we covered their cost, which you should do if you have a speaker in. You should expect to do that. But typically, they don't ever charge anything, but you should ask that, But you'd be surprised at how many people you could come get to speak at your lodge for a hotel if they're that far out, and a dinner. But, that kind of inspired the whole thing. And it started snowballing a little bit as you guys got more and more active, because that's not an event that we can do like we regularly do. That took a real team to put that on.
Mm-hmm.
We had some expertise in all areas.
And I so much of this was really, and I don't want to pull the veil back too much, but a lot of this was just by the seat of our pants. Hey, is this going to work? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
What model did we have to go off of? I mean, it's been pulled off in other states, but this is Texas. Everything's different.
And unfortunately, none of us have been to any of the other MasoniCons. So we had nothing to work off of because, and obviously, would we have been better off? Absolutely. If at least one of us had known what the hell we were doing, I'm guarantee you it was a good event. Could have been better, but I think we did great for not knowing anything about what we were doing. I think we did a really crazy job.
Well, I mean, the proof's in the pudding, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I know it seemed like the moment when it coalesced, right, from ideation to reality was when we finally decided, here's the date. And then when you booked the Masonic Temple for the entire Masonic Temple, right? And we have now 5 lodges and several different appendant bodies that meet there. So we said, this day is just us. And I think at that moment, that's when it kind of took on a life of its own. That's when we said, well, now set up a Facebook page and a web page. Now we got to start, doing something real.
Yeah, that did make it real, especially when we shortly found out afterward we'd scheduled it on a traditional day for York Rite, which,
oh God,
completely an accident. And thank goodness we had understanding brothers there like Jake Kirkpatrick and others that just, realized it was an honest mistake on our part.
Yeah.
But if you do something like this, plan accordingly with all major bodies in your area.
Yeah. Well, one of the big deals that we ran into was that there were a lot of brethren that said, hey, I wanted to come, but I've got Dallas Scottish Rite to go to. That's the first weekend of the reunion. And man, I was kicking myself for that because, we just, there's a huge number of guys that would have been there.
We would have conservatively at least got another 10 from there and probably 3 or 4 from the Texas Lodge of Research.
Oh, yeah, that was...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. It was the same day as the Texas Lodge of Research.
Yep. And you've got a lot of things that happen, especially in that late part of the year, right before holidays, that you need to plan for. If you're scheduling something major statewide like we were, which it turned out to be bigger than statewide.
Yeah. So it was absolutely nuts. One of the coolest things was, Omar called me over. Omar Galeazzi called me over and he says, "Hey, Gabe, I need your help. What do you need?" And he says, I need you to read this guy's letter. And it was a letter of good standing from a brother who is from the Grand Lodge of Baja California. And it was just the coolest thing because I'm like, oh, wow, like we are going translingual here,
Yeah.
Crazy.
No, that was great. I mean, we had guys from all over the state, which really, lends credence to what we did on the end of marketing, because that wasn't, of course, with Facebook and things like that, it was a lot easier. But, when we finally set the date, I think Billy had a website up within a couple of days. And it's no shabby website, And I guess it was a little bit longer than that because we picked a date and then David Culley helped secure top-notch speakers. I mean, he secured Piers Vaughn, Michael Pohl. Chuck Dunning's local, so I talked to him. But David Culley did a lot of the speakers to where it's like, okay, we've got some big-name speakers. Let's put this thing public. And then we had a comprehensive website where you could buy tickets, get details, look at bios.
Right. And Mark, our treasurer, actually, he was the one who set up the ticket site. And then and then it was simply a matter of creating a spot within the website that would redirect to the ticketing site.
Yep. Which, I mean, that worked out great too. Registration. I don't think I ever really saw a long line there. Nobody was waiting an exorbitant amount of time to get checked in and get their lanyard and their team. I mean, for us not having done anything like that, nor have any precedents really for it, that wasn't bad. I mean, I know we relied, because all of us have been to different kind of conferences. I go to a lot for real estate. I know, Billy, you go to a bunch of different cool ones.
Right. Well, yeah, a lot for like IT and web development and, even, a couple of hacker ones for IT security.
Yeah.
And gaming, of course. Lots of gaming.
And that's kind of what we went after, was that fun fellowship conference. And I think we hit the nail on the head. I didn't get to see as many breakout speakers as I wanted to, but the guys coming out of each presentation, you could see it in their eyes. They had just got some knowledge that, got their gears turning.
Oh yeah, I went home and spent a couple of hours just writing out new ideas that came to mind. based on hearing some of the stuff. And I didn't even get to see everybody because I was mostly in just one single room helping to moderate in there.
And that brings up where you say you didn't get to see anything. I think one of the coolest aspects of this whole thing is I know you got to pick up Pierce from the airport, and I got to pick up Michael. Mm-hmm. We'd never met those guys before, interacted with them on Facebook a little bit. But I know from the stories you told me and what I experienced with Michael Poe, it was just like, man, we didn't miss a beat. It's like I've known this guy for years.
Yeah.
We picked up a conversation and it didn't stop.
That was fantastic.
Yeah. It was very cool, though, because they were interested in the exact same things we were interested in. So, it's like here's someone new to bounce ideas off of.
Oh, man. And I'm telling you, when I picked them up Sunday morning and we, took them out to Risky's for some Texas barbecue, and Michael Pohl got in the car and looked at me and said, I want to tell you first thing that what you guys did was a great thing. It was just like, woo, because I was still pretty tired at that point, right. not thinking straight. And it was like, all right, we're on the right track here.
Yeah, and he speaks at a lot of different places too, so he's probably seen his fair share of events. So that's a really awesome kudos to have.
Yeah, that's high praise. It's cool.
Oh, I'm telling you, and Pierce sent one because we sold his books and we got him his money and everything. And he sent an email. He's like, you guys, money was taken care of, everything. He says, I've been to a lot of places and experienced a lot of good and bad places. He said, y'all were top notch.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that was a big goal, not only for attendees to have a good time, but speakers too.
Yeah. One of the things I really enjoyed was, Jeremy Barnes from Amity and I, it was the first time that we'd ever met in person. He'd been on the podcast before. But so, Jeremy and I drive to the Friday night dinner together and stuff. And over dinner, we got into this really ridiculous argument or discussion or whatever. But it was let's say heated discussion because it was still very amicable, right? And he and I had some very different, because we were like, well, theoretically, what would happen if X? And he and I had very different ideas on it. And we're going back and forth in this heated discussion. And I enjoyed every second of it. It was fantastic. But I also realized I would never have that level of discussion with somebody I didn't know. It was really cool because it was the first time that Jeremy and I had ever really interacted in person before, and here we are already. I guess the way that I would describe it is argue like old friends. Right?
Yes,
and that was a lot of fun. It was cool because it just I don't know, opening yourself up emotionally to be able to have conflicts of opinion with somebody else is very valuable, and we don't do that with strangers. But in a room full of brethren, nobody's really a stranger,
Okay.
No, I remember that well. I got dragged into that conversation. It was a great conversation.
It was fantastic.
Just over some hypothetical things that probably would never happen. But it's like...
But we wanted to know anyway, dang it.
Yeah. We just play these scenarios out with laws and recognition. And it's like, it's just a great conversation. Of course, that was right before Pierce tried the calf fries.
Yes. I think New York Muse's most excellent, so I'll use our most excellent companion, Vaughn, had never had calf fries before. So we said, well, have you ever had Rocky Mountain oysters then? He said, no. And I said, oh, you're going to love these anyway. And he tried them and he enjoyed them. So, hey, I think everybody should eat calf fries at least once in their life.
Yeah. He said if you fry them long enough and put enough gravy on anything's good.
Probably eat a shoe. You could probably eat a shoe that way,
Yeah.
But and let's talk about the social events that we had, right? Because we had lunch, and lunch was part of the event, but we also had a dinner the night before that was it was not really advertised. That was more something that hey, you're a speaker, you're in from out of town, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
We just kind of
we had the lunch prior to that too when we picked up Piers and Michael from the airport.
Yeah, and then we had the dinner. The dinner was very well advertised. What do you guys think about all that? How did that go? How did you enjoy it? I mean, we've already kind of talked about the dinner a little bit, but
yeah, the only thing wrong with Friday night dinner was it was a little loud. Either we're going to do something at the temple next year, or we're going to have a private room to where when we have conversations, we're not fighting a restaurant's worth of people.
Yeah, we had to
us.
yell over everything. It was terrible. But
it was some Nebraska frat boys, so it was impossible. When you got Chuck Dunning making the stink eye for being too loud, you're being too loud.
Yeah. But it was we were at Cattleman's and the food was incredible though. That was top tier
food
steak.
Was great. And then when we went to the dinner after MasoniCon at Los Vaqueros in the Stockyards, I really couldn't have been more pleased because it wasn't our own room, but it was kind of sectioned off, where we had like walls around our area. And I think there was 25 or 30 of us there. And it was great. I mean, I couldn't have had a better time, because we weren't fighting to have conversation. The mariachi sang happy birthday to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was shaped up in a U. We could have had a festive board if we really wanted to.
Yes, we could have. Yeah.
And I want to apologize to Brother Ibarra who sat next to me at the dinner, the Saturday dinner, because I was so dead that I did not really talk to him at all very much, and I'm sorry because
that is the one.
He and I have had the last time we talked with each other was at the backyard at Grand Lodge, and it was a very fun experience. And he and I didn't really hardly talk to anybody at dinner, and I feel bad about that because I was just emotionally dead on the inside.
Well, I know we made eye contact a few times, Gabe, and it was like I could read your mind. I'm just thinking about my pillow in bed.
Oh man, I was so tired.
I think we were all dragging.
Yeah,
we'd been up since 4:00 that morning almost. 4:30.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The one thing I would change, I think I would extend the invitation to the Friday dinner to more people. Because somebody said, hey, man, I didn't know that there was going to be a Friday dinner. I'm over in Dallas. I would have come by, and it was kind of the intent for it to be speakers and people who are from out of town. But also, you do feel like, oh crap, this person kind of got left out, and that's this is not, it wouldn't have been hard to add more people. It would have been hard to find a bigger venue. It would have been really easy. So I think next year, I'd like to see more people at the Friday dinner, whether it's at the temple or at a separate venue. So,
absolutely. And with the survey we've got going out for the attendees, we're asking, would you want something planned Friday night, even if it meant additional costs, because we're either going to go to a restaurant or we're going to have something at the temple, which will cost per person, not making money, just paying for the meal.
Yeah. And for and to clarify, guys, for those of you that are listening, we're not in this to make any money at all.
Yes.
Just to be clear, we didn't make money this year. But it's an investment, it's not really profit, loss, whatever. We know that this is going to be something that grows and grows. And at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, it will be self-sustainable, and we don't have to worry about it. But,
Yeah, I mean, if this thing ever made money, we're going to have more goodies, either more speakers being flown in or maybe scholarships offered for admission. I mean, there's no telling what we could do. We could lower the price for a few years. But it's all going to be reinvested back into this event. It's not a fundraiser for our lodge.
Yeah. And so something I think would be kind of cool to do would be, so I'm looking at the registration form for the South Central Regional York-Rite Department Conference, right? And what they have there is They have the registration fee, right? They said, okay, registration fee, X number of dollars. If you want the buffet lunch on Friday, you pay another X amount of dollars, and that's a separate line that you register for.
That's what I'm thinking.
If you want the dinner or the banquet dinner on Friday, different line, different number of tickets purchased. And they have it even for the Saturday, right? And so we did include lunch. We included lunch for MasoniCon, but one of the things that we could do, right? And obviously none of the ideas that we're spitballing here are going to be set in stone. This is just us kind of talking about it. But we could lower the ticket price and just not include lunch. And then you buy lunch separately on the registration form. I don't really know.
Or bring a sack lunch, you know what I mean? To where if you're a little tight on funds,
and sure, and I mean, I would say, because per person lunch wasn't that expensive. So I would say, hey, if you want to save $10-15 or whatever on lunch, and you have to register separately for it, I'd be fine with that. I do feel like if we did a festive board, or if we did a meal catered at the temple, that was not a pay your own way, at a separate event, or at a separate venue, then yes, we should have that as a totally separate byline, because not everybody's going to be able to come in for Friday dinner, right? So same thing with the Saturday dinner. If that's something that we're handling, then some people need to leave right after everything is done. So we can't include that, but I don't know.
And maybe we could at least, hey, we're going to, on the registration form, we're going to this restaurant. Would you want to go, so we can make reservations?
Yes.
Accordingly. Because we can do dinner one. My idea is to have, like we talked about, an opening ceremonies. I'd love to see the Knights Templars doing flag presentation on Friday night while we, or before we have dinner. The Knights of St. Andrews and the bagpipes come in and do something unique, and I'm talking with the shrine too, to see if they've got anything that we could put in that's unique and fun like that,
Well, one of the things that we could do is that every year a different appendant body handles the flag presentation, right? So like for opening ceremonies next year, the Knights Templar do it. And the year after that, the Knights of St. Andrew do it. The year after that, the Shrine does it, If the Grotto puts together the old drill team, then the Grotto does it the year after that, that kind of thing.
Well, and you can even do like Demolay or something like that.
Demolay.
Yeah, and I've got plans for Demolay and Rainbow Girl. We're going to hire them next year for sure, because we're going to make it easier on ourselves. We worked too hard the day of. It was too much. But why couldn't the KSOA come in and with the bagpipes and do the national anthem? Or I think the Shrine could do the same thing with their band. Yeah, we could figure it out and have some fun. Because that was the one thing we did get, is more time to fellowship, and I think that's a great opportunity Friday night. Especially for guys coming in out of town, we owe them something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about changes and suggestions made by attendees. And so Omar Galeazzi was kind enough to email us a list of comments that he got from people that were at the attend. And so this is his email. Here are a few comments from people. Overall, everyone was very impressed and spoke very highly of what y'all did. If you have any questions, please let me know. And so this is the list of suggestions that he had. Table board or festive board. Have some kind of event the day before. This is a positive, good amount of speakers. Serve food next year. Need more food. The food was good.
Lord.
More group involvement. They felt separated. More seating area where the speakers were. Longer speaking times. Too early of a start time. Coffee social in the morning. More variety of drinks at lunch. Set your own schedule so they can pick who they want to see. Have speakers from lodges that have been successful at events or bring people in. What have they done to make their lodge successful? Everyone I talked to said they like how to do a lot outside of lodge. Audio equipment for speakers. Some guests were not able to hear them well, and flash drive for speakers so that they can copy their work so that others cannot, so that others can take it home with them. So let's talk about festive boards first. So we could do a festive board if that's what folks wanted. I think it'd be great. And we could do that maybe in conjunction with the flag presentation and opening ceremonies. Serve food next year and need more food. Rit, can you give us the breakdown on food and what happened at lunch?
Oh, that's when my nerves finally frayed. It was like, so we ordered food for 100 people.
Yes, we did. What happened?
Yeah, exactly. So we learned a lesson that you need to have servers at big events like these, to where when it's time for seconds, everybody can have seconds.
Yep.
They don't get seconds on their first go round.
Because one group was still upstairs, and we all kind of trickled down. The first group went down there, and the first group started trickling down, and then those of us that kind of remained talking with the speaker from the first group, I think there was like maybe 6, 7 of us that stayed up there. We got down there, and we were like, oh yeah, we'll be fine. We ordered food for 100 people. And we get there, and there's no food.
Yes.
It's just gone. It's like,
and Omar saved us.
Yes, he did. Omar went and got fried chicken and just took care of us because we ran out of food, so he went and got more food. And
it was like under 12 minutes he came back with like 40 servings of fried chicken. It was like, oh my gosh.
Right. That was a wonderful learning experience.
Yes.
And didn't we run out of that too? I mean, everyone got something, but
I mean, yeah, we did run out of fried chicken too, and I was so thankful because I had a plate because when we got down there, the only thing left was like potato salad and
a couple pieces of sausage.
It was like potato salads and like beans, I think. So I loaded.
Yeah, there was no sausage when I got to it. I had to actually get some of my wife's.
Yeah, and so I just loaded up my plate and I just said, "Well, this sucks. Okay, fine. As long as more guests can have the food, I'm fine with eating the leftovers as an organizer." So I just loaded up a plate that was like 3/4 potato salad and 1/4 beans. And I tell you what, I felt like hell for the rest of the day.
Oh yeah,
I did have some fried chicken when it finally arrived. But I mean, oh man, I feel so bad.
But as far as guests, I think there was like 7 or 8, somewhere around there that didn't actually. They had to wait on the fried chicken, but there was a lot of us.
Yeah,
because I went around to all of us. I was like, "Don't eat yet.
Yeah,
wait till the end." So we're all like,
So lesson learned: we have to serve food because apparently, sadly, we can't trust our brothers with appropriate serving sizes. And because that's fine. We all learn.
We need
from
that
this.
proportion control, really, right? And,
yeah.
So I kind of going in hand in hand with food. One guest suggested that we should have a coffee social in the morning. I think that's a fantastic idea. I worry about starting too late. What do you guys think?
Well, I think we definitely should consider starting later next time, maybe 8:30 or something like that. And we'll talk about that. But of course, coffee we had Busy Brew that came up from Waco. They had a little technical difficulties getting the car running that morning. So they were a little later than scheduled. But I think as long as we have that area with coffee, they could do that around the vendor's table organically.
Yeah. Well, and what if we had, the lunch area and everything like that, and we set up, we had the coffee and everyone was sitting at the tables and stuff, and we said, hey, from 8 a.m. to 8:45 is the coffee social. Everything kicks off at 9, and we have coffee, donuts, kolaches, if the boys from Waco are coming up, they can stop in West and bring a bunch of kolaches.
Or we could do Pearl Snap.
Pearl snap.
Yeah,
True. That's true. Oh, here I go, forgetting our brother. So, Rick,
I
don't
think
say
it
his
would do
name.
us. I think it would be good for us to have some kind of breakfast to sell there. You know.
So we just say, hey, like, you want food? You know, $5 gets you 2 kolaches and unlimited coffee, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I think that'd be a fun idea, and you know, have some music playing or something, or maybe not music, just something happening in the background. So I like this more group involvement. Guests felt separated. How do you like? I guess that'd be more social stuff, right?
Yeah.
Coffee social, more time at lunch, more advertisement of the dinners, that kind of thing. So
Exactly.
I feel like that could be handled that way.
In more time in the breakouts for them to ask questions and answers. You know.
So,
well, and so that kind of depends a little bit on us too for the emceeing, because I found that at least in the room I was sitting in, sometimes I would actually have to remind speakers, hey, you got like 5 minutes left, you know?
Oh, and that's our bad for not having digital timers.
Yeah, next year we got to have a digital timer on every podium, and I guess microphones, because that was some brethren could not hear speakers, you know.
No, and we will, because we're going to break it up to the whole room, not just sit them on one side. That way, you know, there's 30 guys in there. You can sit 3 seats apart if you want.
Yeah, and so I think next year what would be good is if we, instead of putting the speakers in the middle of the room, we just set them up kind of near the east.
Yes.
You know, and they can put the projector up in front of the worshipful master's seat if they need it, and brethren can just be on either side of it. Or we can have folding chairs. I think the advantage of having them facing south was that you do have all that built-in seating in our lodge rooms. So
right, you don't have to sit the entire time with your neck to the side.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about this? Have speakers from lodges that have been successful at events or bringing people in. Have them talk about what they have done to make their lodge successful. What do you guys think about inviting speakers to talk about recruiting? I'm not. No.
When it comes to lodge administration, that's Grand Lodge Education Committee. They're covering. We could not do anywhere near as good a job as they're doing at the lodge leadership training. If you want that, go there. You will get it. And I don't even want to give the appearance we're competing with them. This is all educational, symbolism, esoteric, from a little bit deep to super deep.
And just to be clear, like the goal of Texas MasoniCon, we are here to talk about esotericism. We're here to talk about ritual. We're here to talk about history. We are here to talk about the elevation of the mind in any way possible, pretty much, right? So if somebody wants, we had a speaker talking about Jungian archetypes, right, and how we see them in different stories and how they relate to the hero's story. That's not explicitly Masonic, but it works because we see that in Masonic ritual.
Right. Yep.
So,
and that was an interesting talk on the mono myth.
Right. And we had another speaker talk about how he improved his lodge's his candidates' experience in lodge by having them do paper, or they would either do papers or presentations, or they would talk about how Masonry changed their life in the time that they have been an apprentice, a fellow craft, etc. And how he talked about deliberation and building the temple. But it wasn't a recruitment thing. It was more about how do we approach the initiatic process, right? And so we're not looking to build recruiting. We're not looking to teach how to run a lodge. This is education for your mind. We're not, and like you said, Rit, the Grand Lodge Education Committee can do way better of a job than that. So go to officer leadership training. Go to OLT. That's what that's for.
Or find that lodge and invite somebody there to speak. That's a different venue. Or put that event on yourself. figure out how to do that. That'd be a great idea. Our idea is different.
Yeah, and that's also what the Briscoe Workshop is for, right? Briscoe Workshop is a little more legalistic in nature, but it's similar.
Yeah.
So this one is interesting. Flash drive for speakers so that they can copy their work on there so that others may have it. So this is kind of a complicated one because some of their stuff is not appropriate to copy. Like they do have a PowerPoint presentation that they use, but it never leaves their possession, right? Because some of it may not. None of it is secrets, but some of it may be too much for the profane to encounter. So, you have a lot of USB drives wandering around. Maybe that might not be appropriate. Some speakers don't have material that they brought. If you wanted, if I asked Michael, hey, could I get the material that you brought? I'd be screwed because Michael spoke without notes and without a PowerPoint. He spoke extemporaneously for about 35 minutes on the Battle of New Orleans. So some of these speakers aren't going to be bringing material. Some of these are going to be bringing material that's not appropriate to leave laying around. But what do you guys think about maybe saying, hey, like for $10 or whatever, we will have all the speakers that brought their material
and gave their permission.
And gave their permission. We'll put it on a flash drive and you can buy it for $10 at the event. Thoughts? Yes, no, so maybe.
That was an idea that I had brought up. I don't remember which one of you I was talking to, but because I've been to several IT conferences where they actually provide the PowerPoint decks that speakers talk from on a USB drive that they give every attendee, or they have a web page to where you can actually see the talks that were given during the conference. That's available like a week after the conference happens. I know there's usually a cost associated with them. Sometimes it's wrapped up in the cost of the ticket. Sometimes it's not. I like the idea. I know that not every speaker is going to want to give, their, is going to necessarily give their approval for it. And that's fine. Those who do, I think it would be a great resource, right? Something that the attendees could take back into their lodges and, kind of give a speech about there.
Yeah, of course, if speakers are game with it, it's not that big a deal. And we could come up with a lot of ideas to put on there because there's tons of PDFs out there that we could load up on, just like the Grand Lodge Education Committee does for lodge administration. We could do for educational because, like, Lightfoot's monitors on PDF out on the internet. We could load it on a flash drive. You name it. There's tons of text out there that are great for a Mason to read that we could load up. But when it comes to speakers and their PDFs, having their slides would be great. But it's just, if they're doing their presentation right, that slideshow shouldn't show what they were talking about. Just kind of some illustrations. But in the end, you got to see it to understand it,
And I like the idea of being able to provide people with educational material that they can take physically home with them. Yeah. But we also were very clear that this is, there's a reason why we made this event for Master Masons only.
Yeah.
So much as I like the idea, it just doesn't seem appropriate, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe that's something we do in the future.
Maybe a better idea would be to have contact information for the speakers so that way if a lodge is interested in seeing it and weren't able to attend, they could just reach out to the speaker and invite them.
Yeah, and maybe a book list.
That's the ideas right there.
Some recommendations on books that they got for their speech. Here's some books I read that gave me these ideas.
So by the way, before we move on, speaking of USBs, if you were a speaker at MasoniCon and you left your flash drive, I have a flash drive. I have no ideas who it is. It was someone who spoke in the South Room? So,
which is pretty much everybody. So,
right. So if you're missing a USB drive and you were one of our speakers, please reach out to us.
Godspeed. Let's talk about changes and suggestions that we'd like to see.
So the one thing I noticed was that we need to make sure we have a set moderator in the rooms. When brothers are passionate, sometimes you can come off as confrontational, and there was maybe one or two moments where I felt, I would actually stand up, and look to see if the speaker had it, but especially when you're talking about anything esoteric, people get passionate about that. And so I think for us, we need to make sure we have a set moderator who doesn't mind standing up in each location we're going to have a speech, every once in a while stepping in and saying, hey, maybe we can take this offline or handle this after the talk. I appreciate your input, but let's move on.
Yep. And I think we can cure that with a lot of, because the breakouts were too short and they had no real frame of time reference.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe timers and making the breakout sessions longer.
Yep. I think we'll cure a lot of that.
And I feel like we were really ambitious with 6 speakers. I feel like next time we may be very well benefited from having, 4 breakout speakers, right? Or 3 breakout speakers that are twice as long, right? I don't know.
Or multiple tracks.
Yeah, or 1 keynote speaker and more time for breakouts, to where we have multiple, maybe you can't see them all, but you could still see 6 and spend an hour and 10 minutes in each breakout.
Yeah. And so instead of 40-minute sessions, it really does need to be like an hour talk with like 10 minutes of Q&A and 5 minutes in between sessions or something like that. Maybe make it 10 minutes of Q&A, 10 minutes between each session. Hour 20. We were trying to pack it way too hard. And there were a couple brethren that in the room that I was in that I went, oh God, like I might have to stand up and shut this guy up, because it was disruptive to a certain point. And I understand curiosity and all that, but there were it was not just one brother, but and then there was also kind of an issue where some folks were trying to share their opinions disguised as questions, and that was really something.
Yeah. And maybe we need to put out, like when you buy a ticket, we send a, hey, thank you, here's the proper etiquette,
Yeah. Established protocol,
Yeah, because this is something new.
Yeah, I mean, and so that's why I did not intend to stay in the room that I did, but that's why I went ahead and stayed in there. So I'm like, oh yeah,
we got busy wrangling.
Right, we need a referee.
So one of the things that I would like to see us do next year is a festive board of some kind. I know that was a event attendee suggestion, but it'd be really cool to have a festive board, like a full-blown festive board with wine or, adult beverage of one's choice as part of like opening ceremonies and stuff, and just really kind of try and make that a big deal. It's not a huge deal breaker for me if we don't do it or anything like that, but I think it'd be really fantastic.
At the very least, we need to be doing toast somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it'd be fantastic. And Fort Worth Lodge does have a festive board program that we use, so it'll be good.
Yeah, we'll have plenty of time to practice. What I wanted to ask you guys is, of the presentations, breakout, and keynotes alike, which one was your favorite and which one moved you the most? And I mean, they can be the same, but for me, they're too different.
They were all excellent. Every single one of them, I learned something new and I took something away from. So that's a really hard choice to say what's my favorite. I mean, especially because our keynote speakers were, it was like, just when you didn't think it could get any better, it got better. Out of the breakout speakers, I would say, again, every single one of them that I saw was good. I only got to see, I think, 4 out of the 6. But Brad's, the astronomical layout of the lodge gave me a lot of stuff to think about. And it was after seeing that one that I'm like, crap, I had a whole bunch of of stuff pop into my head, and it's like, oh, that leads me down this bunny hole, and I got home, and before I knew it, I was 20 pages into it.
That's greatness.
Yeah, you
So
sent
that
you
one
sent us that,
definitely
and I was
moved you.
like, you sent us that, and I was like, oh, holy hell!
Right,
I'm gonna have
and I got
read
to the
this.
end, I'm like, I think maybe I'm going a little bit too deep here. I need someone else's input because this is clearly spiraling into something that most people just won't care about.
Into the rabbit hole. Yeah, as far as the one that I learned the most from, I would probably say Michael Pohl's talk on the Battle of New Orleans. That one, it was unexpected. It had kind of he had the setup of, why Holland Lodge is kind of important to him because of its namesake. And then he just kind of jumped subject, and I didn't even think about it. And he tied it all back up very neatly together. I'm not going to spoil it just because it was for anyone that does attend that talk in the future. It was really incredible, but it told the story of how Freemasons were very instrumental in keeping New Orleans from being razed to the ground by the British or exploded by the New Orleanians, because that was the backup plan. If the British came, just blow New Orleans to hell. So Masons were instrumental in that, and he talks about why. And it was very enlightening. And I am not really based in the authentic school. I love history and everything like that, but I definitely tend to consider myself to be more on the esoteric side of things. And I was totally enraptured the entire time. I mean, I was learning and getting educated, and that's why I love this this as an educational event, because everybody's going to get something, including things they didn't expect. It was very fantastic. And as far as emotionally impactful, I thought David Bindle's talk on making lodge experiences more worthwhile was very powerful stuff.
Yeah, they were both very good.
Wish I could have seen his. Billy, did you have another one? Because I know when you started, you said something about as far as breakout. It's like that was a caveat for your final drum roll there.
Well, no, and so like Gabriel said, David Bindle's, it did have a lot. I think it is the one that had the most impact because when he talks, he talks about what worked for him over at JPL, and it's like that's a fantastic idea. It's stuff like that. And individually, you may be like, I don't know about that, but all together, taken together, it's like it is a serious, concentrated effort to make a difference.
Yeah.
That turn it away from, being purely a social club and to create meaningful experiences for the brethren.
No, David Bindle's so fun to be around. I mean, because he's just contagious with his zeal, for sure. So for me, by far, my favorite was Michael Pohl. And I'm in the same camp you are, Gabe. I'm, when you start telling me about history, I'm like, okay, this is probably going to be pretty cool. And it's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh, he's talking about Masonic history. I'm like, all right. And then about a quarter of the way through, I'm like, where is he going with this? Because you know how he wasn't saying any names, and he is a masterful storyteller. I mean, it crescendoed into this awesome moment of like, oh my God, that's the same person,
Right.
And it was just like, I mean, I could have listened to story after story from this guy because he was just such a great orator. And I was just so pleasantly surprised by it all. And I was like, wow, that is an awesome story about history. What a pivotal moment. But, Chuck, his speech, how it all boiled down to basically, the foundational teaching of Masonry is love. It's just something I've always felt since a young man, that's like the cornerstone of life, because without really loving other people as human beings, you life becomes something where you're in it for yourself. So when he tied his presentation all together, that was the most important aspect of Masonry, it was like, oh Lord, me and this guy, we're seeing eye to eye right here. It just really clicked home with me. It was, that one of those aha moments. It's like, okay, so I'm not the only weirdo that, not in a hippie love kind of way, but it's like, you got to really break down and love one another if you're going to become a better person.
Yeah. Chuck's book is probably one of the more important books that I've read in my relatively short Masonic career.
I agree. And I mean, just his influence and what little time I've gotten a chance to know him, to where he just puts himself out there, that it's like, hey, I want to be a better guy. I love you. Here's Chuck, warts and all kind of thing. You know what I mean? And it's just a really inspiring way to go about Masonry, because especially with a bunch of guys, it's all about ego and things like that, to where if we tuck it away, there's no telling where we're going to go and getting to be a better man.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one there where it was like perfect crescendo for me for the evening, because I didn't get to see a lot of the breakout speakers. I should have went, but I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah, and well, you were running around trying to fix everything.
Oh, I told my wife I woke up a few times Saturday night. Hey, Rick, that's all I would hear. Hey, Rick, because I heard that 4 million times that day.
Well, on Friday night, I only slept like an hour and a half because I was so nervous.
Oh, me too.
I didn't sleep worth a damn. I was just I kept waking up going, oh God, oh, what if it all goes wrong? What if it all goes wrong?
What if the guy didn't show up to let us in? Who am I going to call? What if we run out of food, which came to fruition?
Dang it, Rit. That's some chaos magic right there. What if this is what I believe? Oh, no, it happened in real life.
Yeah. Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
No, sir. Okay. So
lesson learned.
I'm going to close this out or start closing us out with the Fraternal Quote of the week.
Let's do it.
And this week's Fraternal Quote is in reference to mankind learning about truth. It is through this that man, discovering the knowledge of his own greatness, learned that by establishing himself upon a universal foundation, his intellectual being becomes a true temple, and that the torches which brighten his path are the light of thought which surround him and follow him everywhere. That is an excerpt from Natural Table of the Relationships Which Exist Between God, Man, and the Universe by Louis-Claude de Saint-Martin, the unknown philosopher, which, by the way, if you want to pick up an English copy of, our very good friend Piers Vaughn has an English translation. So you can find that on his website.
So you guys know what we forgot? We should have led off with this. Next year's MasoniCon is July 26th and 27th.
Mm-hmm.
So mark your calendars, brothers.
26th and 27th.
Yep.
It's going to be great. So, guys, not closing thoughts here. In short, what is your vision for Texas MasoniCon 2019?
So I would like to match the education we had, but add another layer of fellowship, to where we get to know each other a lot better. I got to know a lot of guys, but I'm with them. I didn't have enough time to really have a conversation. And that's a big part of what I wanted to start this, because the fellowship at Grand Lodge and the officer leadership training is such a huge reason why I go. And I think that would be a big draw for us. So something I'm definitely going to make happen.
So my vision for MasoniCon 2019 is, I think we should always be striving to be bigger and better. I think with the scheduling down the way we have it now, that, that we've made sure that nothing else major is going on during that time. I mean, this is Dallas, Fort Worth. Something's always going to be going on. But the major bodies are out of the way. So hopefully that should allow everybody who wants to be able to attend to be able to make it. I would love to see so many people eventually show up to where we have to start, thinking about having multiple tracks, to where we have maybe longer talk times, but we have a lot more speakers. And then you have to determine, if you want to see someone who's into esotericism, you go here. If you're looking for someone who's more into, the historical or the psychological aspects of Masonry, you go here, and you're able to kind of pick and choose. I think that might also make a better experience, because rather than, sitting there saying, I don't really care about this talk, and having to sit through it, now you're able to kind of create your own experience and personalize it.
Yeah.
So
that'd be awesome.
And
have to tier lunch because we have so many people there.
Right. Yeah.
That'd be nice, actually.
Yeah.
The my vision for MasoniCon 2019 is to hopefully, and I know it's kind of a tall goal, but to be self-sustaining by the time we hit 2019. And I know that that's only the second time we go, but my vision is for that to be self-sustaining at that point. Bigger, better, weirder education, I want to get weirder. And I want us to get crazier with the fraternal stuff. So, I mean, obviously, yes, like dinner was fantastic, but I also want us to just kind of rock out and also have a party, and just make stories that we'll be telling for a long time afterwards. I think that this year was very promising. I was very inspired by how well this year went. And I can only see 2019 being even better based off of the reception that we had.
I'm with you. So, I would love for it to hit self-sustainment at year 2.
So, folks, if you want to know more, you can find us at www.fortworth148.org. We are at Fort Worth Lodge 148 on Facebook. Our email is info148@fortworth148.org. And if you live in the 64th District of the Grand Lodge of Texas and you want to promote an event, please reach out to them at 64th.org. That's 64th.org. You can learn more about Texas MasoniCon at www.texasmasonicon.com. That's texasmasonicon.com. We are at Texas MasoniCon on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And when is it going to be? July 26th and 27th. It's the last weekend of July 2019. We hope to see you there.
Yep. All right, gentlemen, this is Rip Moore signing off.
This is Billy Hamilton signing off.
And this is Gabe Yagish signing off.